And it's good afternoon to the Sportsfan Radio panel, the last edition of Sportsfan Radio for 2021. And we're starting off today's show with a very special guest. Back in February 2012, we were lucky enough to have Simone Wearne on our show when we were a radio show at Southern FM, actually back in the Mentone studios. And we've been lucky enough to get her on today for our last show to follow up with her and find out what's been happening with her over the last 9 years. So congratulations to your elevation to the Hall of Fame, and how have things been?
Thanks. Well, firstly, thanks for having me, guys. I still remember that experience. Back in the days where you actually went into a studio and got to converse with people in person. It was good old days. No, it's really, really cool to be back on the show, and a big thank you for having me. It's 9 years. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? And a lot's happened in the last 9 years, but yeah, that was a very good time. The Hall of Fame was a big thing for me at the time. It's probably more important at the time for other females, just to see that there was an opportunity, and people in baseball, whether you were male or female, were getting opportunities to be recognised, I suppose, and acknowledged. So for me, that was probably the biggest thing about the Hall of Fame, and it's certainly not my most honourable accolade, I wouldn't have thought, but it's a really cool thing to have nonetheless.
Sarah, I'm sure you've got some questions you're wanting to ask Simone.
I've got plenty of questions to ask Simone. For those of you who don't know as well, Simone is also a teacher at Holmesglen with their sports degrees, and I'm currently studying there as well. So I've enjoyed being able to annoy Simone over the last year and pick her brain and get as much information as I can. But also, while I've been studying and you've been teaching me, you've just finished up your Masters of Business Administration at the Australia. What's that like, sort of balancing those two things, and then also balancing going to the Olympics with the softball girls and all the different things you had to do this year? What was the sort of balance like, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, sure. Good question, Sarah. And you haven't annoyed me once yet, and I don't feel you will ever do that. You're a fantastic student. Look, the easiest answer to that is that I was brought up, and a lot of my sporting background in particular, and a lot of the lessons I've learnt throughout my life so far have all been relevant to me being involved in sport. My dad's been my coach, or was my coach, for a long period of time throughout my career. And it was always about enjoying yourself, having fun. And when you commit to something, you go and do it, and you commit to it 100%. I wanted to go back and finish my Masters. It's something I'd always wanted to do. COVID hit, and I sort of went, this is maybe a good time because I can study online while I'm doing some other work. I was carrying out a couple of jobs. I was lecturing at Holmesglen, working with the Aussie Spirit, the softball girls who were preparing for the Olympics, and trying to do my Masters. So it was at times very challenging, but also very rewarding. And I really wanted to commit myself to all of those things. So it wasn't actually as hard as people externally might think. If you really want to do something, I'm a big believer in you go and you do it, and you get on with it.
No, and that's amazing. And now you're passing those pearls of wisdom on to your students. What's it been like transitioning to being at the front of the classroom as well and sharing that information?
Yeah, I love it, Sarah. And I think you can tell from being in one of my classes, I'm pretty passionate about what I do. And there's a lot to learn about sport and about the industry, particularly in Australia, but also, of course, globally. But that's the lessons in the classroom. And I think it's been tough this year. Of course, not being in person has made it a lot more difficult for both the lecturers and the students. But in saying that, I love it. I've spent a lot of time obviously coaching, and this is almost next level coaching because there's so many different personalities, so many different motivations for wanting to study and be in a classroom. And some people want to commit 5%, some people want to commit 120%, and you got to find a middle ground of trying to help all of those different personalities learn and take something away from it. So yeah, I love it. I'm really enjoying it, and particularly loved the first year media students this year who are very, very passionate, committed students.
No, and that's amazing. I'm glad that we're getting positive feedback from you as well. And also throughout this year, you're very involved in local baseball and softball with Springvale, I believe. How's it been, especially getting back out there after 2019 would have halted a lot of things in community sport? How has your club been affected, but also how's the sporting code been affected by COVID, do you think?
It's been tough. Of course, community sport was always going to be hit hard, particularly from a volunteer perspective. And it has been hard getting people back out. And obviously there's a bit of a concern from some people of, well, should I be going out? Should I not be going out? Should I wear a mask? Whether there's rules or not, there's a little bit of concern about safety, and which is probably a good thing. You can see I've got my Springvale gear on, so I'm repping the Springvale Lions today. I went down this morning, our little league team played. We've got 9 little 8 to 12-year-olds playing on a Sunday morning. So I was down with my camera taking photos. And I just love, again, I've spent most of my life being assisted, supported, guided through to not only helping with my baseball, but my career and I suppose every lesson I've learned pretty much has come from sport. And my, as I said earlier, the Hall of Fame was great for me, but last year I became a life member at the club, and that's for me the biggest honour I would ever get in sport is to be a life member at my club. So I've been, I was president for 10 years, quite some time ago actually, in my 20s and 30s. I'm a little bit older than that now. And I love the club. I feel like I've been given so much, and now I want to be able to give back to whether it's the kids or the young girls down there, or even the 55-year-old women who are still playing and just love to swing the baseball bat and throw a ball. That's what I love to do. So
amazing. Judge, did you have a question?
Look, thanks, Sarah. Look, congratulations, Simone. And I got to say, there's not many Hall of Famers of any sport that would say that they would prefer to have life membership of their local sporting club. I just think that says a lot about you and also about grassroots sport, which is what we're all on about on this program. Just a couple of related questions, Simone. Firstly, where's this status, if that, of the Women's Professional League in Australian women's baseball, a league of your own, as it were?
The status right now. So look, it's a good question, because of course, we could talk, particularly Sarah and I could talk all day about women's sport, particularly the growth of semi-professional / professional women's leagues worldwide, but notably over here in the AFLW, we know WBBL and the W League leading the way. But, baseball's got, I think there's a lot of work to do from the bottom up. We just don't have, from a participation perspective, we don't have great numbers at this point, and COVID has not helped with that situation. So probably extension of Sarah's question, from a COVID point of view, it's been really challenging just getting people back on the field to play sport, because, people are, and even I found myself, you used to being at home, you're in your little cave and it's comfortable now to just be at home. So it's a little bit, you got to get yourself up to almost get out of the house, to be honest. And I'm a little bit older, so it might just be me, but that's been a challenge. But from a women's baseball professional league point of view, I would have thought, they're 4 or 5 years away from that getting off the ground. I'm not involved anymore at that level. I'm more community club based, so I'm not privy to all those discussions at that level. But we don't really have the depth at this point, I wouldn't have thought, to be able to produce what we need to, unless you could bring in a lot of imported players from the US and Japan.
Simone, as a follow-up from that, it's always struck me that one of the problems with women's baseball is the concurrence of softball, women's softball. And I just wonder whether you feel softball cannibalizes baseball or vice versa, or in fact, they are a complementary and good thing for each other.
I think they're fantastic. So I grew up in a world where you were told you either played one or the other. So you played softball, you played baseball, and that was all there was. You couldn't do both. It was frowned upon to do both, and you just didn't do it. And I had a lot of people in my career, sort of when I was young, it was pretty clear when I was 13, 14 that I was pretty good at baseball and I was better than all the other girls. It wasn't a lot of girls, but I was better than any of the other girls. And so the commentary was, you need to play softball. There's no opportunity in baseball. And I didn't want to play softball. I love baseball. So it wouldn't have mattered to me whether there was opportunities or not. I just love playing the sport. So I wouldn't have gone to softball. But these days when I'm coaching, I say, you play every sport under the sun, because let's be honest, if you're trying to develop any kind of motor skills, catching and throwing, hand-eye coordination, cricket, soccer for your footwork and your running, any of those sports are fantastic. So any of the girls that ask me, I want to play softball, great, go and play softball. Or I'm playing baseball on a Saturday, I'm thinking about cricket on a Sunday, awesome. Go and have a go at cricket, because go and have fun playing sport. That's what it's all about. I don't think tie yourself to one or the other. And just because you play baseball doesn't mean you can't be a great cricketer, a great softballer, or a great volleyball player. Whatever you want to be, you should get the chance. So my theory is play everything and anything.
I was just going to say, baseball is one of my favourite sports. You must have enjoyed that Field of Dreams remake. I mean, that's just so magical, that movie. And even for non-baseball fans, just that feeling of that stadium, just brilliantly done.
The goosebump, like watching that, as you said, it's someone who anyone who's just not even following baseball, who's seen the movie and has some sort of, understanding of that. I've actually played at the Field of Dreams, so that they built that new Field of Dreams stadium next door for that game. Yeah. But the actual original Field of Dreams with the corn out there, we played. I was really lucky. We took a team over to the US in 2015 and we got to play a game. We found a local team, made contact with them, and a group of guys came down. It was a women's team we had, and a group of guys from the local area came and played a game against us under lights. It was one of the most magical things I've ever done. And I'm obviously a baseball lover, so I've seen that movie 100 times. But yeah, that was very cool to watch this year.
My bucket list is to see every stadium in America, the major leagues. Have you got a favourite? My favourite is San Francisco, where they can hit the ball into the water, wooshka, and there's someone there with I've been
to a lot of games there. Look, I've probably been to half the stadiums. We played a World Series in 2002, and we played in the Marlins Stadium. So not one of the most favourite stadiums by any means. No one really likes it, but we actually played in there, and I actually pitched at Skydome. So it's called Rogers Centre now. Skydome,
Toronto.
Blue Jays play. Yeah, I got to come in relief from the bullpen, just like the big leagues. There was no one in the stadium watching, but one of my favourite memories of all time playing baseball was I got to come in from the bullpen, run all the way in and pitch against Japan, and we won that game 3-2. I think it was either 3-2 or 2-1. We won by a run. And one of my best mates was the catcher and I was a pitcher. So it's one of my all-time favourite memories. But, yeah, that's probably my bucket list too, is to make sure I get to every stadium for sure.
At San Francisco, the snack was clam chowder in a sourdough cob roll. It sure beats the lukewarm 4 and 20, I can tell you.
Oh, the food at some of those stadiums. You got to go to – have you been to Wrigley Field?
No, I want to get there.
Wrigley Field, the deep dish pizza, Chicago deep dish pizza. You've got to try that. Good.
That's where you take a goat in, isn't it? That stadium. That's one for the baseball fans.
It is. Wrigley Fields. Yeah, Wrigley Field and Fenway Park are the two sort of old school. Lots of there's that feeling when you walk in, like this is cool. It's been around a long time, and there's a lot of history. Yeah.
Simone, I was at Fenway Park a couple of years ago, and it's one of the most outstanding sports experiences I've ever had. The crowd is just bloody crazy. Simone, just one final question for me. The situation of coaching. We talk a lot about coaching on this program and the advantages and benefits of it. How's the coaching for women's baseball? And again, is it cannibalised by softball? Because obviously, you can go to the Olympics with coaching. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
As when you say my thoughts, do you mean the difference in coaching each sport?
Is coaching strong enough at the moment in Australian women's baseball? There's a great need for it.
Oh, look, I would I think if you asked anyone in baseball that question, they'd say no, because as I said, we're really low on participants at all levels, whether it's young girls coming through or the group of older girls that are playing higher level baseball in this country, and not dislike or not unlike AFL at the moment, AFLW, who are sort of going through this. We had this discussion, I think maybe Sarah was in class, we had a discussion or a debate, we call it, I suppose, about Nick Del Santo being announced the St Kilda AFLW coach. And I thought personally it was a great appointment because he's a long time St Kilda person. He's been doing other work in their development programs, and he speaks pretty passionately about the women's game. So I didn't think it was a bad appointment. But from the students' perspective, well, it's just another male taking a job with a female sport. And I understand that, but I think you've still got to earn the right to coach at that level. It shouldn't be. I've got concerns that we're just going to allow women to coach because they should be. Well, there's a lot of work to do to be able to coach at that level. It's not just about giving people. To me, it's almost a little bit, and I might get people offside here, but it's a little bit like giving little Johnny a participation trophy because he turned up and had a go. Well, it's good that Johnny turned up. And it's good that women want to go out and coach, but they shouldn't just be handed high-level opportunities without having the development, the training, the guidance, the support. And let's be honest, Sport Australia and the AIS, along with some of those high-level leagues, are putting in place some great development programs. So 10 years' time, I don't think we'll be having this discussion when I come on for my next anniversary, Mark. It'll be a discussion about how great is it that 90% of the coaches in the AFLW are female, and we'll be, singing their praises. So the time will come, but I don't think it's right now. And I think that's across the board in women's sport, most women's sports in this country.
Mm. All right. Look, thanks very much for coming on again, Simone. We really appreciate your contribution. Certainly it's brought us up to date with where you are. And I can guarantee one thing, it won't be 10 years before we ask you one again.
Anytime, guys. I love talking sport. I'm like Sarah, so you can get me on any week and I'm happy to talk about anything and just love it. So I appreciate what you're doing and the program's great. So keep up the good work and look after Sarah for me.
I was going to say, I won't make it through 10 more years like this one. Maybe make it 3 if you can. I'll be in the nut house, I think. I'll dial in from there in a straitjacket.
Okay. Thanks, Simone. All right, we might go to Dan. We haven't had you on for a US report for quite some time. Not 10 years, but it feels like 10 years, Dan.
Yeah, it's crazy how long. It's been about a month. It's crazy how long it's been. So.
Oh, you've been off presenting trophies.
I have been. That's the role of a commissioner. You got soccer championships and cross country championships and volleyball Yeah, you got to give out trophies. So.
All right, Dan.
Can I say you're looking a lot sharper than Bill Belichick in his hoodie? You're looking very sharp there, Dan.
Well, it's lifestyle, Paul. It's going from work to home every day. That's all I'm doing. So.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, Dan. I wanted to look at college basketball. I looked at the rankings. Currently, Purdue #1, Baylor #2. Wouldn't be the power colleges that I would be expecting at #1 and #2. What are your thoughts on? Will they be able to stay there, or is this just a flash in the pan?
I think Purdue and Baylor are really good teams this year. You're not going to find star players. Generally, if you're an international fan of college basketball, you haven't necessarily heard of Coach Drew or Matt Painter at Purdue. They're not household names like Coach Krzyzewski is or those guys. So it really is. They're really good teams, but Purdue got the #1 ranking this week, and then their next game, Mark, they ended up losing. So the college basketball season is going to be up and down all season. It's really going to be interesting to see who makes the Final Four, who gets that opportunity to participate in the NCAA tournament, because I think there's more parity at the top of college basketball than what there ever has been. And it's going to be really interesting this year. This is Coach Krzyzewski's last year at Duke. This is his swan song. They unbelievable game just about a week and a half ago between Gonzaga, who was the #1 team in the country, versus Duke, who was the #2 team in the country. Duke ends up winning that one. Fantastic game in front of completely sold out crowd of over 20,000 people in Las Vegas to watch that game. It was like watching a heavyweight boxing match in college basketball, and Duke ended up winning that game. But I think you're going to see a number one team. That number one team is going to lose within a week or two of getting the number one ranking. It's just going to keep cycling all season long.
So Dan, 20,000 in a college basketball stadium. How big do these stadiums get? I think Rod Lane's 15,000.
Yeah, the Las Vegas, they played it at the newer T-Mobile Arena, which is where the NHL hockey team plays there in Las Vegas. So they had plenty of crowd, but they were selling tickets, Judge, at hundreds of dollars per ticket. People were begging to get into that game. And a friend of mine was running it, and I was so excited when they put those tickets up for sale, and they sold within less than a day. They sold it, and you're literally dealing with post-COVID time periods. People are so desperate to get out and see this level of competition. So to see them successfully put on this game in Las Vegas and see that many people show up and do it successfully was just that opening moment in many ways that maybe this pandemic's behind us.
So Dan, Duke's the powerhouse. What's happened in North Carolina this year?
Yeah, Roy Williams retired, so it's one that new coach coming in. A situation that they're rebuilding and not as strong. They'll still have the rivalry. They're still one of the top programs nationally. A lot of players want to go play for North Carolina, but there's a lot of teams now, as you indicated, the Baylors, the Purdues, the Gonzagas, that are much stronger now than maybe a program in North Carolina, particularly when it comes to recruiting, just because of the longtime coaches that are at those programs that are able to recruit the better players.
Do you see? Well, I see Kansas is at number 8. They're one of the powerhouses, and Gonzaga. Going forward, do you see those 3 teams, Duke, Gonzaga, and Kansas, perhaps taking out the 1, 2, 3, or will there be somebody else break in?
Yeah, I think the teams that you're looking at are, the Gonzagas, Purdue's, the Dukes, the Kansas, UCLA's pretty good in many ways. Baylor's right up there. I think Illinois is one team that you're going to see come on. They've had a player that's been, I hate to say suspended, but he had to sit out a few games for some NCAA issues. So I think Illinois is a team that you want to look at as well once they're able to get fully going, get their team fully going here.
Now, the Big West, which you're very much a part of, a couple of teams, the Anteaters, the Gauchos, have started with 5 wins. Do you see them making a bit of a statement this season?
Yeah, they're I think our top 2 teams on the men's basketball side, Mark, in the Big West. So you see Irvine's played some really good games and ranks in the top 50 of the power rankings, what the NCAA calls the net rankings, which is what the NCAA men's basketball committee looks at. So it was a good start with those rankings coming out this week for UC Irvine, University of California at Irvine, being a top 50 program, and then UC Santa Barbara, which is the University of California. Santa Barbara was our preseason number 1 team, but I'm excited to see University of California Riverside with their coach play this season as well. So we've got 3 or 4 teams that are going to be really competitive to win that championship and moving the tournament over to the Las Vegas area for us and opening up a brand new building, the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson, Nevada, which is right there in the suburb of Las Vegas, is going to be really exciting for our teams to participate in at the end of the year. That championship is going to mean a lot to both our women's team and our men's team that come out of there winning the NCAA bid.
I've seen a fair bit of media discussion about that tournament, Dan, and credit to you that I didn't know that there was a new basketball centre there, but had me going to the internet to find out where it was.
Yeah, and it's still under construction. We will be the first event in the Dollar Loan Center out there. So literally, I'm checking the live stream of the construction every day, seeing what's been done, making sure that the lockers are being put in. They're supposed to finish up February 1st, and we'll be in there on March 8th. So a lot of dusting and cleaning will be done in that month of February. A lot of work for us because we haven't been able to fully get in there and really inspect the facility. But it's a perfect size for the Big West. There's already minor league hockey. The Vegas Golden Knights minor league team, the Silver Knights, will be playing in there. There's rumors that the WNBA will be moving a team in there. The Las Vegas Aces may move over that facility. So we're really excited about where that facility is going to be. That we're the Big West Basketball Championships are the first event in there, and we'll be growing with that facility over the years.
All right, Dan, let's have a look at the NBA because that's in season at the moment. I saw in the media that Zion Williamson, the number 1 draft pick from the 2019 draft, is out injured. He injured his foot in the pre-season. He hasn't played at all, and I see that he's had a setback and he'll be out for an extended period now. It worries me that he might go down the same road as, dare I mention the name from the 2002 draft, Greg Oden, who was the number 1 draft pick, had somewhat similar body build and only played 105 games. Is it too early to say that Williamson's a bust?
Well, I think that's the hard thing about it, Mark. I think, Greg Oden was a good player at Ohio State and obviously got drafted number 1. It was not a very strong draft that year in many ways. I mean, there was a couple of good players that came out of there, but he was the prominent player coming out that year. And it's the same with Zion Williamson. I mean, he was the best player, but he only played 1 season of college basketball. He dominated that year of college basketball in many ways. And so many, when the Pelicans got the number 1 pick, the fans in New Orleans bought season tickets and thousands of season tickets were sold because he was coming over to the Pelicans. He's significantly overweight. I think the part of the discussion this week was, the foot injury that he's got is obviously a foot takes a while to heal, but I think they clocked him right now at 330 pounds, which is obviously a significant weight gain since he's been injured. And when you weigh that much and putting that much pressure on a foot day in and day out, Mark, it's not good in many ways. A foot injury takes a long time to heal. He's got to lose the weight to get back to any semblance of an NBA player and have success for his career.
Have to keep him out of the canteen, Dan.
Yeah, that's the hard part about New Orleans. If you've ever been there, it's the food is very rich. It's very, very good. But from all indications, the team is doing everything they can to get him on a pretty good diet and make it, I think, the whole team handle that diet as well.
I was going to, if we can cross codes, I watched I love a good sports documentary on Roy Halliday, who, of course, one of the best ever baseball pitchers, died in a light air accident, just flying like a lunatic he was. But the part of the documentary I found very interesting is that his wife confirmed he threw up before every game. And we know enough that these people aren't, they're human. They're humans. And I've seen Glenn Archer speak. He was one of the best ever AFL players for North Melbourne. He threw up before every game. And you just expect these people to be champions, and just a lot of them think, well, a lot of us think about egos and things like that. There's a real person behind all this. He never felt worthy. And he's one of the best ever.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, I agree with you. We often see athletes as just machines, robots. They just go out there and do what they do. We don't see them as humans in many ways. I mean, you look at the Roger Clemens of the world, the guys that I'd love watching go out there and pitch or play. Roy Halladay was one of those guys, and you just assume warms up, grabs the ball, goes out and throws, and just does what he does. But there are so many different facets mentally, as we've learned a lot this year. We've talked on the show all year long about the mental health aspects of sport, and obviously we could spend many hours talking about that. But it goes to that everybody's got a routine. Everybody's got foods they eat, superstitions, all this other stuff, but you don't realize some of the medical impacts mentally has. And like you said, Roy, throw it up before every game. I mean, the stress, the nerves, going out there performing in front of tens of thousands of people every day at a high level, that definitely has a grind and stress and pressure to it.
And after the games, he was never happy with how he performed. And I remember when Tiger Woods started off, he'd win a tournament by 10 strokes and he'd go to the putting green. When an Aussie golfer wins a tournament over there, the bar's open until Tuesday. But it's just some of these champions, you think it's natural. It's not. It's hard work. But unfortunately, with his love of risk-taking, led to his death. His father was a pilot, and he had a light aircraft that he loved flying. That was his outlet away from the world. And he just crashed by doing all these stunts. So it's just a tragic end to what was a brilliant career.
And I'll tell you, Paul, I hate to say it was an addiction, but you're looking for ways, particularly when you're a high-level performer. In many ways, you see addictions that do come up, whether it's drinking, whether it's eating, whether, other things that we've seen, drugs over the years. I mean, they're looking for ways to escape, to get out of that pressure zone. And unfortunately, some of those things are available and those risks are had. So I agree with you.
Well, can I just add to that? Because I think it's a huge issue. We'll probably canvass it next year. In the old days, there was just the normal media, mostly newspapers, and it was usually a bit reactive and usually praising of a person doing something wonderful, like an Ash Barty doing something. These days, social media has changed that atmosphere entirely. Now there's as many haters as there are people blowing smoke up you. And I actually think this concept of mental health is just going to get progressively more dangerous in terms of world sport. The bigger you are, the more people want to pull you down. And that's the case in Australia, and I'm sure it's the case in America too.
Well, the sad thing directly on that point is that he died, and the toxicology report, he had all sorts of painkillers in his system. He's on amphetamines as well. What had happened, he was in rehab for addiction to opioids, and someone saw him in rehab, and it made the media, and he left rehab. So he never got the treatment that he needed for his addiction to the opioids. He had such bad back issues, he ended up shrinking 3 inches. That's how bad his back was, yet he kept playing through it because he was such a professional and so obsessed with the game, and he got addicted to the painkillers. And as I said, he was in rehab, this is years ago, and someone saw him there, and he was so embarrassed that someone had seen him in rehab that he left rehab and never got treatment, which would have saved his life.
Well, and Judge, I'd also say, I mean, it's called social media, but in many ways, I think it's anti-social media. And I think it's only gotten worse during the pandemic. As people have gotten to the point where it's more about me versus about the world versus the greater good, it's become a lot more about me. And I'll tell you, a lot of things we've seen in the United States with airline incidents on airplanes and some of these type of things, people are just getting used to whatever I want, I get. And it's the same way with the social media. People are more than happy to express negative comments just to see if however people would respond. And I'll tell you, people read that stuff. People believe the things that are being said, and they may not be factual whatsoever. And athletes, coaches, commissioners, presidents of organizations, they all read that stuff. So it is very much, it's become, I think, a lot more antisocial than it has social over the past 18 months.
Okay. Well, we might leave that discussion there and welcome our second guest for today, Sportsfan Radio's own, as we like to call him, Craig Robertson. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys.
Now, Craig, 2 rides at Flemington yesterday. When was the last time you were at Flemington? Before that?
I'd worry about the next time. Don't worry about looking in the past.
Good answer.
No point looking backwards.
Yeah. You can't drive it. You can't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror, can you?
No, that's true. Look forwards. Always look forwards.
All right. Well, listen. One thing I looked at the results, and it's no secret to me because I follow your rides. You're in career form at the moment.
Yeah, having a bit of luck. Just keep getting some support from a lot of smaller trainers. And as I keep saying, just keep whacking away, keep turning up and try and give my horses the best possible chance. And horses have been winning for me, so I'm running very well. So strike rate's pretty good at the moment. So we just keep turning up and keep trying to keep reproducing those results.
Well, I'll tell you what happens, Craig. This is how it works. Is I'll get a text after the race saying you've just landed one at 15-1. I'm like, it's just sort of mixed feelings. I describe it. I'm very happy that you cleaned up, but I wouldn't have minded the tip earlier. That's a matter for you, though, Professor,
Isn't that always the case?
You've landed some bigger hits than George Kambosos Jr. of late.
Yeah, no, there's been some good ones. Yeah, there's one at Kyneton there the other day. I think the connection's got 100-1. So
100-1, they'd still be out, wouldn't they? Kyneton Hotel would still be rocking.
Still rocking. Yeah, they're pretty happy about it. But they did have a multi into the following race and it ran second. So it could have been a very big day for them, but wasn't quite to be. But they still had a good result.
I don't know if you heard, we were talking about a documentary, Roy Halliday, the baseball pitcher, one of the best ever, used to throw it with nerves. He was never thought he was worthy, but with jockeys, you're sort of throwing up for other reasons without being crass. I guess you're just wasting away.
That's it. It's a lot of the time you've got to be. If you're getting results, your sort of confidence is up, and a lot of the time, if you're not having the luck, your confidence is down, and you have lots of different thoughts going through your head, and you've got to really sort of just tunnel your vision into and focusing on believing in yourself and hoping that the wheel keeps turning for you.
It's probably similar. I used to play cricket at a low level, and they called me right arm erratic. But if I felt the captain was going to take me off if I bowled a wide, I couldn't really bowl at my best. But if I felt that he had the faith in me, I could really charge in and unleash hell, knowing that. And it's probably similar to you. If you know the trainer, if you make a risk and it doesn't work and you're going to be taken off, you're probably not going to take the risk that could win you the race.
That's very true. It's very true. I ride for a lot of trainers that just say there's no point me telling you how to ride it, and you get the results. A lot of the time, some trainers will fill your head with so many different instructions, and you go out there confused on what they actually want. But if you actually just go and ride the horse and know that your trainer and connections have got faith in you, well, the things happen.
Yeah. Is it true what they say about Gay Waterhouse? You've got a lead on her horses, or you're off?
I haven't done really any riding for Gay. I've trialled a couple for her, but it does seem that way. You've got to go forward on them. She likes her horses put into the race, and I think she backs her own judgment on making sure that her horses are fit. And I think that's where that comes from. That she's a very confident person, and I would say from talking to a lot of the other boys that do ride for her, you get that confidence from her, just the way Gay is such a confident person, and you just get that vibe off her. So you can actually go out there and be confident yourself and put the horses into the race and know that the horses are going to be fit. So, having someone riding for someone like that would have to be a big plus, because she just oozes confidence. So, and that would have to rub off on you.
One of my favourite Australian television sporting moments, Bruce McAvaney, when I think she won the Cox Plate, he looked at the camera with a wink and said, "It's a great day to be gay." But moving on now. Talk us through Glenn Boss, who's just retired, and you can be honest. What's he like? Strikes me as a bit cocky, or is he a nice bloke?
Glenn Boss is Glenn Boss. What you see is what you see is what you get. What you
Just
see
diplomatic.
Is what you get. Yeah, he believes in himself. He might even believe his own shit don't stink. Excuse me, but that's Glenn Boss. That's just him. He's always been that way. He's had his ups and downs, but there's something you can't take away from Glenn Boss, and that's his big race record.
So I was going to say, steps it up. He finds something.
He does. I mean, a lot of the time he gets on some damn good horses, and that's probably his professionalism on being able to get on those horses and actually being a lightweight rider that he can make the weight on them. Like, So You Think, for instance, when he won the Cox Plate on him, got on him because he had such a light weight. Yes, just recently in the Everest, had no weight on its back. But he's professional. He's very hard on himself. But what you see is what you get with Glenn.
Craig Williams strikes me as someone, if you asked him the time, he'd explain how a watch works. Is that what he's like?
Oh, I love Craig Williams. Yeah, I could pick up the phone after I've got a few guys and talk and ring Craig, and he'd answer the phone. And if you've got an hour, you can have a 5-minute conversation. Craig loves the chat, but he's a very genuine person. Types, yeah, he's a very genuine person.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah.
Craig, you're in career best form, as I'm told. You're at an age that I think most jockeys would be thinking the end is closer than the start. I'm just wondering how you're achieving this. It just seems so counterintuitive.
I think there was a trotting driver last night driving the Intermediate. He was 78 years old.
Gee.
I think one of the Demlers. It was I'm not sure exactly who it was. He's 78 years old. It's keeping yourself happy, being happy, having being confident in your body, good mind. I think a lot of it's being happy in what you're doing. It's if you're happy going to work, it's not really work, and you still got to enjoy it and love it. And that's what I'm doing. When I had my injury, I was feeling I was probably getting close to the end, and can be a bit of a pig-headed person. There was no way known I was going to go out that way, so I sort of put myself through a hell of a lot to get back. And when I got back, I sort of, the pain sort of went away a bit, and I'm sort of enjoying what I'm doing.
You get the young ones asking you for help. I once saw Damien Lane speak, and he said he went to Hong Kong, and João Moreira was more than happy to help him. He said because most of the young Asian jockeys were too arrogant to ask, which astounds me that you wouldn't ask the best in the world for help. But he was more than helpful with Damien Lane, a young rival. Yep. But he just said he was so helpful because he actually wanted to learn.
Yep, that's it. I've probably got a bit of a name for myself for helping the apprentices here in Victoria, and if I see one that wants help and they ask for help, I'll give them all the time in the day. But you can get some that think they're above it, and they don't. They look at you and say, yeah. But you can tell they're not listening, and so okay, you know it all, so that's fine. That's no worries. But there's so many of them who come to me and ask me to watch the replay with them or go in the steward's room with them, and I'm more than happy to help them do that, because they're the next generation. They're the ones that are going to be keeping our industry going, and you've got to help help them to not make the same mistakes, so to speak, as they've just made, and just so they're going forward and focusing on the right things.
It's similar to the legal profession I'm in. Some of the young ones think they're off to the High Court in a couple of years, but you just let them go, and you've got. I learned by asking questions all the time. So.
Well, that's the only way you can learn. And someone said to me a little while ago, "There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's only a stupid question if you don't ask it."
I've gone very close, though, I can tell you. Anyway.
I'm sure we all have.
Like when I asked Andrew Demetrio, why did you go and buy Israel Folau? That was close. He didn't. The look he gave me, I'm still recovering from.
Still recovering.
He wasn't up for that question at all.
No, I bet he wasn't. He probably doesn't know the answer to it.
It's only 10 million.
No drama. Small change.
Craig, we spoke to you in May, and in fairness, you'd only been back in the saddle after your injury for a couple of months. You'd be pretty pleased with how things have developed for you between then and now, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's to keep the scoreboard ticking over, so to speak, and keep getting that continued support. Like I think I'm going the races nearly every day, and I've got to tell my manager stop. I've got to, I'm not 25 anymore. I've got to just slow down a little bit, and I've got a young little girl that I want to watch grow up also, and but I'm really happy with the support and very thankful for the support. There's 170, 160, 170 jockeys in Victoria, and I'm going the races nearly every day. So I'm very grateful for the support, and that's just all about turning up, doing your job, being professional, and being in the right frame of mind. So, and happy lifestyle at home makes a big difference on where you're at when you go to the races.
And
I do that rugby league segment, and the boss of that is Peter Volandis. Can I get your thoughts? And I am a Sydney sider, I'll declare that. When that initially all happened, the Everest, it was seen as a direct attack on Victorian racing. But do you think after it's all calmed down a bit now, that the combined effect of having a Victorian scene and the Sydney scene, I wouldn't say at war, but I think that it's brought something to the sport. It hasn't detracted that much, I wouldn't think, from the Victorian scene. But correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a positive, all that money up there in those races.
I'd like to know where he's getting all his money from, but I'd love for him to be able to be running racing full stop and have these sort of races in every state of Australia. Maybe not Western Australia because they don't seem to want anyone else there, but if he could run the whole lot of it, and he would have, I think it'd be a great landscape for racing to have all states have a pick of the cherry. And we're a small country, and we shouldn't be fighting to have the best horses in each state. We should be just embracing all good horses at each carnival. And that's just my thoughts on it. It's a shame they can't get their heads together and actually work on the same page.
Well, the Everest concept is very interesting, that you buy a slot, and obviously it's for rich people, but you can get 1,000, like a syndicate together to buy the slot, and that's a large part of what the money is.
Yeah,
is those slots are so expensive, and you put your best horse in. I think it's worked very well, but
it certainly has worked well. It's a real spectacle, the race. You see the best sprinters all over Australia get into that race, and the best ones that can get picked for that slot. So it is a great idea, great initiative by Peter Volandis, and it is a great spectacle on watching the race.
Now, mates at Bendigo trackside today, is there any tips you can give him? Have you looked at the form today? I haven't looked. I'm actually I'm going to a party with my wife today, so I'm a friend of hers has got a 50th on, so I'm taking the day off, and I haven't ever looked at them. It's probably like when people ask, do I watch a movie about lawyers when I get home? The last thing I want to see is someone being cross-examined. Thank you very much. Exactly. That's exactly right. Or when they think chefs go home and cook a lobster bisque, Yeah. They cook themselves Maggi noodles, Yeah. Switch off. That's it.
Just a quick one on yesterday's racing, Craig. The horse you rode in race 2, Just a Dreamer, came home like a train. It seems to have a little bit of go in it. Probably one to watch for the punters. Yeah, he's a nice horse. I've got a very good record on the horse, and I've won quite a few races on him.
Won on him a couple of starts back at Mornington, and he hadn't won since I think I was the last person to win on him. So I was out for 16 months, and so he might have been missing me. But he drew first time at the 1600 yesterday. He won at the 1500 at Mornington 2 starts prior, but first time at the 1600, drew the outside barrier. So we had to go back on him and try and ride him for a bit of luck. And had he have drawn a barrier, been a couple of spots closer, he might have been, he might have been right there. Like he's only beaten a couple of lengths yesterday. Had to ride him for a little bit of luck and sort of duck and weave our way through. And he did hit the line really well. And we were very encouraged with the way he went yesterday. So the connections will look for a very similar race in a couple of weeks' time, and all going well. If you can draw a barrier this time, he could be the one that's putting his head out first.
Okay, Paul, did you get that? Just so that when the text arrives the day after that the horse won, that you had a little bit of an early tip on it.
I don't punt. The mother-in-law, hello.
Horse called
for a
Boho.
mate I'm talking about who likes getting my tips. Yeah.
Horse called Boho Miss is going around at Kyneton on Thursday.
Make a little note.
Did you write that down, Paul?
See what I'm doing right now. There we go. I'll pass it on to my friend.
All right. Listen, Craig, thanks very much. We love it when you come on. It's great to talk racing with you, and there's nobody more pleased than Gelding and I to see you doing so well. We've threatened to open a Craig Robertson bank account and just put the lazy 5 on every ride that you've got. Given your form,
how much they're paying to do the show?
Jeez, I tell you what, the pressure's on now, isn't it?
Form over the last few months, mate, we'd have a fortune in it by now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't go back and back those ones.
Exactly.
We had Greg
right.
Hall on
exactly
once.
Right.
I got Greg Hall on through a bookie I know, and he said when he first met Kerry Packer, he said, "You better win this race. I've got a bit of money on this." And he asked him how much. I quote, Greg Hall said, "Why don't you really open the handbag, you big girl?"
Yeah, that's great.
Kerry actually liked that because he doesn't like sycophants. He likes someone that said the way it should be rather than bowing down at him. They got on well forever after.
That's it, exactly.
All right, Craig, all the best to you and your family for Christmas and the New Year, and we'll look forward to talking with you in 2022.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much for having me on, and stay safe, and a Merry Christmas to you all.
Thanks very much, Craig.
Cheers, guys.
All right, Paul, let's look at you for the NRL, and one more off the bus at Canterbury.
Well, I was going to have the backdrop, but I couldn't get it going. If the bus more packed than anything you'd see in New Delhi. But they've got rid of one player at least off the top of the bus, Ned Kotrich, who's a very good player, by the way. But they couldn't have too many more on the bus. He had to go, so he's gone back to his original team of the Raiders. Very interesting, the Eels have stopped hemorrhaging by signing a very, very good hooker, Josh Hodgson, who lost his way a touch in Canberra. He is a very good player. I won't quite put him in the Cameron Smith mould, but he will be good for the Eels. They lost the Police Academy Mahoney, our favourite Police Academy star, so that's going to stop that hole. We know how important a hooker is in that game. I'm interested as well, during the week, Peter Volandis became a doctor. I don't know if you know, Professor, but he's analysed the risk of COVID in the sport, and Dr. Volandis has said that it's all fine because he's done some stats, and it's about 3% of players aren't vaxxed, so no dramas. But the governments of Queensland and Victoria have said, Dr. Volandis, just hang on a second, there won't be any of that on our watch. So you can't train or play in Queensland or Victoria. So that's going to make it a bit difficult, despite what Dr. Volandis thinks is a minimal risk to the players. There's a couple of high-profile players, Big Nelson, Sofa Solomona, who's one of the biggest men I've ever met at the Storm. He hasn't got the jab. And Josh Papali at the Raiders, no jab. And Jason Tamalolo, the Cowboys, no jab. So as it stands, they're going to be not doing too much, I wouldn't think, this year. Until they get those jabs to fall in line, despite what Dr. Volandis thinks is a minimal risk.
And I see that Brandon Smith has returned to training with the Melbourne Storm, and welcome back with open arms.
Well, everyone's come out of I won't say out of the pub, but everyone's come out to dismiss the talk of the Storm having a drinking culture. I think, like any sporting team, they've had some nights out. He might have embellished it a touch which I've sometimes been prone to. Even the guy that he said was falling around drunk, which had happened if you have a litre of vodka in half an hour. I don't think they'd manage that in Siberia, but that was Dale Finucane, who's at the Sharks. He said no bad blood at all. Pleasingly for Storm fans, Cameron Munster was at a lunch with Finucane and just on the mineral waters, so he's sticking by his no booze plan. That'll be great news for Storm fans that he's got his life in order. Brandon Smith off to the Roosters. Let's see if he can put in and deliver a great year in his final year. I think he'll be professional enough to do that. I don't think he'll already be thinking about his next team. I don't think there'll be any swap deal happening. It's a strange quirk in rugby league, though. You can be playing a year for a team when you're knowing that you're off to another team the year after. So that'll be interesting to watch for the Storm fans, yeah.
All right, Paul, I'll stay with you. Your sports highlights for 2021.
Well, 2 rugby league ones. To see the team that I saw kicked out of the comp that I loved. I was in court the day we were readmitted back into the comp to make another grand final. I was very happy. We didn't win it, but I didn't need to. I've had one in my life. That was an amazing effort, and it showed the passion in the Rabbitohs team and the genius that is Wayne Bennett, which leads into the other great story in rugby league, that it's going so well. We're adding a team in the Redcliffe area, one of the fastest growing parts of Australia, and it's going to be serviced by a fine rugby league team, which makes me very happy. There is talk as well, which would make me even happier. The North Sydney Bears might be coming in a couple of years as the 18th team. I used to go to that fine oval with my father and watch Norths and Souths every year. That would be great for rugby league to have an inner city Sydney team, but that's a few years off. So we'll just stick with the Seagulls for now. They're a bit slow in adding some players. Maybe they can get some off the bus, Professor, the Bulldogs bus, the Seagulls, because there's quite a few going cheap, I'd say, off that bus very soon to clear space under the salary cap.
Now, Paul, just for the viewers who aren't aware, North Sydney did compete in the top level rugby league competition, but ceased that. What was behind that?
Similar to what happened to the Rabbitohs, there was a push towards 2 competitions, or breakaway competition. Probably it's an inner city area, which, like a Fitzroy equivalent, I guess, it maybe lost enough broader support because the demographics of the area changed. There wasn't a large enough, they thought, fan base to justify a team in that particular locality the same way they did with the Rabbitohs. But we fought our way back in, marching on the streets and court proceedings. So it was like a Fitzroy type thing, very similar, just being forced out to merge or you're gone. And that's what happened to the Bears, unfortunately. But there's a lot of people would love to see them back in the comp.
Traditionalists, no doubt.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Sarah, your 2021 sports highlights.
To start with, I feel like I have to give a shout out to Sam Kerr's bump from this week, which was absolutely amazing and easily slid into my highlights. Very late notice as well. Late comer, great bump from her, and then also just a great sporting moment from one of the best best female soccer players Australia's produced, full stop. Amazing to see that. Great to also see the all AFL clubs committing to field AFLW teams, meaning Hawthorn, Sydney, Essendon and Port Adelaide have all decided they're officially fielding their AFLW teams, not for the coming season, but the season after. So really excited to see that. And I'm sure seeing the Hawks play for the first time in the AFLW will be my next sporting highlight. And then just another one as well, I guess, from the local perspective, is we saw a lot more local draftees getting picked up in the AFL. One that a few of us have previously spoken about would be Luke Nankervis from Bentley. Seems to be that there's starting to be a bit more of an investment from AFL Victoria into community draftees. So hopefully we're seeing a bit more of that in the coming years.
Okay, terrific, Sarah. I was interested that the coverage of Sam Kerr's bump on the Spectator on the field gained more publicity than her 2 goals for Chelsea against Arsenal in the FA Cup final. Now, it just shows that down in Australia, if you do something off the charts like that, it's going to gain more attention.
It is, and it's a very big cultural thing as well. Australia's predominant sport isn't soccer, but I would argue that a lot of people would know who Sam Kerr is and how talented she is. She has had some amazing highlights, and I've enjoyed sort of keeping in touch with that. And then also her performance at the Olympics this year was amazing. A sad result for the Matildas not being able to get the medal that they were after, but still great from her. But yeah, definitely, I think as a cultural thing in Australia, we love seeing Australians performing overseas and performing at elite levels, but we also love seeing them be, I guess, the larrikin, the strong sort of thing that we perceive ourselves to be. So when you see Sam Kerr do that sort of stuff where it just looks as if she's gone, nah, not taking this anymore, and it's just gone to knock him out or knock him on his ass, it's something I think all Australians would have loved to do to him themselves. And it's just put her higher and higher on one of the most beloved Australians, I guess, for other Australians.
Sorry, Judge, can I just break in? Just while we're on that, I was amazed that the referee gave her a yellow card for bumping the spectator. Now, I went back and looked at how referees can give yellow cards. The only category it really comes under is unsportsmanlike conduct. Why would the referee bother about giving her a yellow card for that? It just flabbergasts me.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, either employ better security guards that can actually catch the bloke so that the players don't have to do something about it, or just have that second thought to think, oh, it's actually probably more sportsmanly, because what this bloke is doing is the epitome of unsportsmanship behaviour during another game. Get rid of him, push him off. Like, that's what everyone would have wanted to do. And you could tell through the video and what the audience was booing him as he was running around and filming himself at the women's match. It's just like a bit of a get over yourself sort of vibe. I think when it comes to that, it's an old archaic rule that's meant to say that the athletes are supposed to present very well and they're supposed to be perfect and they should do ABC. But in those circumstances, it seems a bit ridiculous. But I think everyone agrees with that as well.
I thought it was that Peter Horse striking again, that lunatic who ran onto the field and cut the net off and ran onto the Melbourne Cup straight, I think. I thought he was out of the nut house and running around again. Wasn't him, though.
Professor, nothing to do with unsportsmanlike. When the dickhead ran onto the ground, he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. He probably thought, oh, it's a game of women. What are they going to do? Bets are off. You go onto the ground. I thoroughly support what Sam did, but can I just be an old curmudgeon and say the news has gone to that totally is disproportionate to the news that she's been nominated as one of the greatest soccer players in the world. But the TikTok generation like things to take about 5 seconds of their attention and can talk about it. And I think that's what's more happening rather than a genuine interest in the game of soccer.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That's what I said. She scored 2 goals in an FA Cup final.
Yeah. Who cares?
No other Australian has done that, yet there's more publicity for her bump on a spectator. It's amazing. All right, Judge, while I've got you there, your sporting highlights for 2021.
3, Professor. 2 are pretty obvious. Ash Barty winning Wimbledon, I just thought was magnificent. Secondly, your team winning the grand final. First, obviously, since 1964, Professor, was a great thing. It's just an odd one. There's a fellow called Sam Bankman-Fried. You may have heard of this fellow, Dan. He's the youngest person ever come onto the Forbes rich list. He's 29. He comes in at 25. Even beat Zuckerberg. He's younger than Zuckerberg, so he's a guy to watch. He's got $22.5 billion. He runs he's made his fortune from Bitcoin, and he's got a company called FTX. They've invested $250 million into a esports organisation called TSM. This guy has got a philanthropy rating of almost 0. He doesn't give his money away. He says, I'll wait till I cash it all in and I'll give it. We'll see that when it happens. But clearly he sees, as a 29-year-old, the future in esports. Now, I think we're one of the only media organisations that does anything to do with esports, and we followed it fairly closely, it is the next big thing. And when you get people like this putting that much money just for naming rights into esports, I think that's a wake-up call that esports is fair income. And Dan, I don't think you disagree with that. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, definitely don't disagree with it. It's nothing like electronic money going into electronic sports. It's a new world that we're heading into.
You have some very impressive lanyards, that Rooster.
Fake money going into a fake sport. Beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Judge. All right, Dan, you're up. Your sports highlights for 2021.
Professor, we could go through every week and go through a different sport here in the American sports, but obviously Tom Brady taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Super Bowl championship, destroying the Kansas City Chiefs. Tom Brady's 7th championship, just amazing at the age of 45, what he continues to do. A few weeks later, after that, Tiger Woods, almost in a near fatal car accident here not far from where I live here in California, disrupting his career and his year. And obviously we'll be looking to see if he comes back. I think Phil Mickelson at 50 years old, winning the PGA championship was a big story. Milwaukee, considered a small market team, winning the NBA title with a great player from Greece. Just goes to show that the NBA has become an international sport in many ways. And it's nice to see a small market team do that. Atlanta winning the Major League Baseball, the World Series. And crazy enough, the story of the year, Mark, maybe the New York Knicks finished the season with a winning record. So that might be the way I close out the sport highlights of the year. So.
I was just going to clarify there, Dan. You had Tiger Woods' car accident in there as a highlight. I know there's some angry women at him, but did that sneak in there as one of your highlights? What's your end of the trip?
Well, usually Tiger Woods is a train wreck, and this was only a car accident, so it's it was a little bit less of a major issue with Tiger. But given the national appeal, the international appeal of Tiger in so many ways, I mean, you don't necessarily like to talk about him, particularly of all the things that he's done. But from the sports world, there's so many people. When he does play, the ratings on golf go up significantly. He's still definitely a market, and when it comes to sport, you still have to talk about him.
And Dan, I think that Giannis is the best player in the world called Antetokounmpo, wouldn't you say?
Yep, he is definitely the best player out there with the most challenging name for any play-by-play announcer to throw out there on a fast break. So that's why they say Giannis and make it easy.
That's right.
I think with Tiger Woods, we can definitely say, Dan, that he was almost certainly going to beat Jack Nicklaus for the number of majors that were won. Self-inflicted wounds on 2 occasions, I think, will now mean that he will not reach Nicklaus's number of majors. Would you be in agreement with that?
100% agree with it, Mark. Yep. I think there's not too many people that are disappointed with that statement. I think, again, with all the issues that he's had and all the negative things that he's done over the years, I think that's probably a good thing for the sport.
Professor, can I just stop on Tiger Woods? First, second or third, Jack Nicklaus was first, second or third 44 times in majors, including 19 times runner-up. Tiger Woods, 22, half of that. And I think that's a more important stat, which just shows, in my humble opinion, Jack Nicklaus is far and away the greatest golfer of all time. So I'm not disappointed that Tiger doesn't pass.
And Judge, based on that too, Jack probably played every week, whereas Tiger was very selective in the number of events he played every year. So he was taking breaks in between in many ways. But I'm definitely looking forward to the year ahead. A lot of great women's sports stories that we could talk about. I mean, obviously, one of the things that we've talked about here a little bit, and I didn't mention it, was the mental health issues and the COVID issues that we had in sport in 2021 that were probably the bigger stories of the year in many ways. But it's nice that we had some women that took the lead in mental health and started helping people understand that it's okay to say we're not okay. So
thanks, Dan. Okay, my sports highlights for 2021. First of all, given COVID, and Dan, you briefly touched on it, just amazed that NRL, AFL, and the other sports managed to get through a season. Probably, and we spend a lot of time talking racing on this program, but of the 2 years of COVID, racing has kept going without missing a beat, which is just incredible when you consider how it's kind of swathed through every other part of the sports landscape. So for sport to keep going, that's one of my highlights. And the second highlight, Judge, you touched on it, and it's been a long time coming, but the Melbourne Football Club winning their 13th premiership. I've got to admit that as I got older, I was really starting to think that I would never see Melbourne win a premiership, but I now don't have to worry about that. Now I'm hoping for a repeat in 2022, and hopefully I'll be able to see it if they do play off at the MCG. So they were my highlights. The gelding didn't give me any. No doubt they would have been racing though, but his tips for Bendigo today, and I hope you've got your pen there sharpened, or your pencil sharpened, Paul. Race 2, horse 11, Josie Lynn. Race 3, horse 2, Palatial Prince. Race 4, horse 3, Buller Boy. And race 9, horse 7 and 1 for Tiger Woods, Moral Force. So
I was going to say the first tip sounded like one of the women he was with. What was it, Josie Lynn? A lot of them had two names.
Very good, Mr. Deligan. All right, well, thank you once again to the panel for your contributions for 2021. It's been an enjoyable 14th year of Sportsfan Radio, and we seem to have found our niche on YouTube. And no doubt 2022 hopefully will be bigger and better, and more guests. That seems to be the magic formula. So thank you all, and until January, a very good afternoon to you all.